right, let's get into some of the key Auburn hitters on the weekend. And as I told you, I wasn't high on their pitching, but I did have some respect for some of their hitters. But I really only knew about two or three guys that they had returned. Remember, they made the College World Series last year. They had Sonny DeShara, who was really fun to watch hit. They had some other guys at the top of that order that could do some damage. But here are some guys you really need to be aware of. And actually, the interesting thing is, um, they're going to stick with the same lineup Friday, Saturday, Sunday, same batting order as well. They don't change anybody around. When I looked at the box scores from previous weekends, Bobby Pierce, he is hitting 373 on the year with 5 home runs. He's going to hit third in that Auburn Tigers lineup. Another guy that's done really well, a freshman, his name is Ike Irish. He's going to be your DH on the weekend. He is hitting 370 on the year with 3 home runs. He's going to hit second for the Tigers. Two guys that you really need to pay attention to, and these guys have done great in SEC play. Bryson Ware. He is going to hit fifth for Auburn. He's hitting 347. He leads the team in home runs with 18. He leads the team in RBIs with 52. His Bash brother is Cooper McMurray, who is a Kansas transfer. He is hitting 306 on the year with 12 home runs. And then finally, one or two other guys you need to be aware of. Cole Foster is hitting 327 with 7 home runs. And also a guy that's kind of brought a lot of energy to the team is leadoff hitter Chris Stanfield. He's also a freshman along with Ike Irish, but Chris Stanfield is hitting 311 on the year. In terms of Bryson Ware and Cooper McMurray, the two big power guys in the middle of that order, they're going off in SEC play. They each have 9 home runs in SEC action. And then when you look at Cooper McMurray, he is second in the conference in SEC games at slugging and on base percentage. So he has been feeling it in conference play. Check this stat out, though. This is very interesting. I mentioned how they don't like to walk, they strike out a good bit. When you look at Auburn's top 10 hitters, everybody in the top 10 has struck out more than they have walked. So on the flip side, right, when you look at LSU and you think of Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Beloso, guys like that. Gavin Dugas has a close strikeout to walk ratio. LSU on the flip side have guys that have walked more than they struck out, but not Auburn. No, they're getting up and they are absolutely hacking. All top 10 of their hitters, the top 10 guys on the stat sheet, they have struck out more than they have walked this year, and some of them it's not even close. All right, moving on to the pitching staff. I can tell you one thing about their pitching staff. Left-handed pitcher Tommy Vale, he's going to start on Friday night. After that, flip a coin. I have no idea. They might not even know until you get to the ballpark. It's interesting when you look at their box scores because they're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that it sticks at this point. But Tommy Vale, the lefty, he went to Notre Dame, he went to TCU, and now somehow he ends up at Auburn. He's been rolling lately. On the year, Vale, he is 4-1 in 10 games started with a 3.8 ERA, 47 and a third innings pitched, 28 hits, so really impressive right there. But he does have 34 walks with 58 Ks. His batting average against on the season is 174, so that's very impressive by Vale. In his last three SEC starts, Tommy Vale has a 1.08 ERA, so he has been rolling. He is averaging 10.91, let's just call it 11 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched in SEC play. That's in the top, I think in the top five. Obviously, Skeens is going to lead that category. But Vale is kind of a shorter guy. He's 88 to 92. You know, he's not like Carter Holton from Vanderbilt who can run it up to 98. Holton's kind of short too. But Vale's 88 to 92. And in the highlights I've seen, he really gets a lot of strikeouts up in the zone with his fastball. So the LSU hitters are going to have to get him down in the zone. And here's one thing to watch out for. When left-handed pitchers miss, right, they miss to their arm side. So think up and away to a right-handed batter. I'm not sure if you noticed Griffin Herring was struggling with that a little bit last weekend against Alabama. He actually threw a couple of fastballs to the backstop that Milazzo had to reach for. So it'll be really important for LSU's hitters to get Vale down in the strike zone and lay off that up and away fastball. As I told you after that, look, this is just my best guess in terms of who Auburn's going to start. On Saturday, hey, let's try Christian Heberholz. He is 0-3 in 6 games started, 4.69 ERA, 40 and a third innings pitched, 45 hits, 37 Ks. He has a 294 batting average against. Now look, when I release this podcast, it's going to be on Wednesday. So by the time if they don't have TBA pitching on Saturday and Sunday, some of these things may change. One thing Auburn does have, they have a lot of lefties. Another guy you could see start is freshman left-handed pitcher Zach Crotchfeld. 6 games started. He is 0-2 in the year, 6.09 ERA, 34 innings pitched, 23 walks, and 35 strikeouts for the freshman lefty. They have two other lefties that can flip flop in the pen or they can start as well. You have left-handed pitcher Tanner Bowman, 16 appearances, but only 3 games started, 3-1 with a 6.27 ERA. Then you have left-handed pitcher Connor Copeland, 4 games started, 12 appearances for that young man. He is 3-1 with a, oh, by the way, 8.04 ERA. So I would imagine Vale's going to start on Friday. I feel confident in Heberholtz getting a start on Saturday or Sunday. But then after that, it's going to be probably a couple of those lefties, or you could see kind of their quote unquote closer. I noticed he started some games this year, but I want to touch on Will Cannon. So Will Cannon is right-handed pitcher. He's more of a reliever, their closer type of guy. He's got 4 saves on the year, 17 appearances. He has a 301 batting average against. Not really what you want to see out of one of your back end bullpen guys. Another guy uh, who I thought was going to do a lot better for Auburn this year, based off the preview episode, is another guy in the pen. He is right-handed pitcher Chase Alsop. He has 2 saves in 26 innings pitched. He does have 31 Ks though, so he's got some good stuff, but he is getting hit a lot. He has a 336 batting average against. So I would imagine, just like I was when I was looking over these stats, their pitching staff is just not good. And you saw recently that Mississippi State fired their pitching coach this week. I'm not saying Auburn's pitching coach is going to get fired. I don't even know who it is, but that was one of my concerns for this team, and that's why I was so down on them. I just didn't see it. They didn't hit the portal hard at all. Their freshman class didn't get a ton of pub, and I'm going to be honest. I just don't like Auburn in anything. When we played against them, I couldn't stand those guys. It was just something about that field, their fans, that team. I hope they lose in everything. I just cannot. That is my least favorite SEC baseball team to play against, and no matter what's going on now, the least favorite team, I just can't stand Auburn. All right, moving on. Let's get into the 3 keys to the weekend for the Tigers. The first one, win Friday night. Yeah, no doubt, Chris. We got Skeens. We're going to win Friday night. Now, this is what I mean, okay? Don't forget, they almost swept South Carolina. South Carolina had to come back in game 3 to avoid a sweep at home. The almighty South Carolina, okay? And I predicted South Carolina to sweep Auburn, actually. So they've had a week off. They've had a chance to rest. They had a chance to get anybody healthy. All their pitchers are feeling great. They have a lot of momentum playing at home with the number 1 team in the country coming into town, looking to duplicate another upset series victory for Auburn. And that's why I say LSU needs to win Friday night. Okay, they need to take the air out of that stadium. From what I remember, it's not super tough place to play. Now, don't forget they have a quirky stadium where they got that mini monster out there in left field. But left-handed pitcher Tommy Vale has been throwing the ball really well for Auburn. He's going to toe that rubber with a ton of confidence. I'm sure his teammates have a lot of confidence in that young man as well. The key for LSU, and we've talked about it, if you missed the LSU versus Alabama live stream review episode, me, Patrick Coogan, and Matthew Musso really did a kind of a deep dive into pitch counts for Paul Skeens and some of these other pitchers, to where we'd really like to see Paul Skeens. He could throw 109 pitches, but man, if he could get into the 8th or go 7 complete, have some quick innings, and maybe Auburn's that team to do it with how aggressive they are. They don't like to walk. Hopefully they're not going to try to drive up his pitch count. They are aggressive by nature. But I think LSU needs to set the tone early on the road Friday, jump out to a big lead, kind of squash some of that emotion that they're going to have behind Vale and having the number 1 team come into the Plains. And I would just love to see some early outs by Paul Skeens, right? Maybe a capper off the bat, a couple of pop-ups on first pitch sliders. Maybe somebody gets jammed on a fastball and they hit a ground ball to Dugas, something like that. But my first key is LSU needs to take the Friday night game for obvious reasons. The second key to the weekend, you cannot let Bryson Ware and Cooper McMurray beat you. You cannot let those guys go off this weekend. On the scouting report, I would highlight Ware, McMurray. Throw that font up there, put it on the whiteboard, whatever you got to do. But I'm saying we cannot let these two dudes beat us. Okay? Remember, they're only hitting 253 in SEC play. They don't hit great in conference games. They don't score a ton of runs. Okay, I did the math. They're averaging 6 runs per game in SEC play. On the flip side, LSU's averaging 8.75, call it 9. All right. If other guys in that lineup beat you, Ike Irish, Bobby Pierce, say Cole Foster has a really good weekend. Look, you tip their hat and you move on. But they're going to have trouble driving in runs as long as you don't let Ware and McMurray beat you. Remember, those two guys each have 9 home runs just in SEC play alone, which is top 10 or 15 in the conference right now. So don't let those two guys beat you. The third key to the weekend, obviously, I just went over Auburn's pitching staff. They're not good at all. Their stats are very, very high. Just because they threw well last weekend doesn't mean they're really, really good, right? They are who they are at this point in the year. Just like I would say, look, LSU's pitchers, they are what they are at this point. Look, they have a team ERA of 6 and some change in SEC competition. All right. Auburn's team ERA in SEC play is 7.47. Okay. So that was one weekend in Columbia, South Carolina. I would say continue to stick to your plan. Look, they're going to do that anyway. They don't need to hear that from me, obviously, if anybody listens to the pod over there. But this is the weekend where it's okay to get in their pen. They have a ton of lefties, as I just mentioned. They have Crotchfeld, they have Bowman, they have Copeland out the pen. But this isn't Alton Davis II and Hunter Furtado from Alabama, to where those guys were 94 to 97. Those guys have immense talent. Okay, the lefties coming out the pen isn't what Bama had. So get in that pen. Look, let those guys continue to walk the most amount of hitters per 9 innings in the SEC. They're not going to strike you out a ton. There's no reason to divert and go back to an Ole Miss weekend where you were having double-digit strikeouts almost every game. So hitters, stick to your plan, drive up those pitch counts. We know you're going to try to win the free base war. And if LSU's hitters can do that, they should be just fine. Okay? Win Friday night, first key. Don't let Ware and McMurray beat you, second key. And finally, just let Auburn's pitchers be who they are. They're not great. Just continue to let them not be great. Okay?